Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. Today we talk conservation and water. Plus, we'll talk to a man who can give us some insight on what's going on in Washington today with all those cabinet changes. Ray Hagar has the rundown.
Sam, today we talk with Biaggi, who will tell us about toxic waste cleanup around the state. And also Cobb, a former special advisor to Ronald Reagan, will give us an international update.
And joining Ray on the Power Pundit panel today, Marlene, Lockard, and Ray Bacon. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
If you think Wells Fargo is only checking accounts, you're not seeing the whole picture. Online brokerage, mutual funds, mortgages, and home equity accounts. So get more than free checking and start reaching your goals today. Now you get the picture. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
If you own a business and want to maximize your company's potential, join the Retail Association of Nevada. Our membership benefits include the Nevada Retail Network Self-Insured Group, providing workers' compensation coverage that can lower your rates. That savings can go directly to your bottom line. We are an effective pro-business organization that lobbies on behalf of our business members. The Retail Association of Nevada, protecting Nevada businesses for 35 years.
When you need a new employee, how can you be sure who you're really hiring? A background investigation by Employer Links will uncover criminal records, verify the applicant's education, check their credit history and Social Security verification. An investigation will research professional licenses and driver's licenses and let you know why they're unemployed. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
It's the next best thing to having your own wine cellar. Come to the Bonanza Casino for a first and fine dining, reasonably priced wines. When you dine at Cactus Creek Southwestern Steakhouse, you can also enjoy a fine bottle of wine at just about the same price you'd pay at the Vineyard, Silver Oak, Robert Mondavi, Rombauer, Cape Red, Jordan, and Duckhorn, just to name a few. And at the lowest prices of any restaurant or casino in Northern Nevada. And remember, all fine wines are not in wine cellars. They're in the Cactus Creek at the Bonanza Casino, where locals come to play.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we welcome to the program Biaggi. He's Director of the Department of Conservation and National Resources for the state of Nevada. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Alan, first off, Yucca Mountain aside, in Northern Nevada, especially in Lyon County, many people think that the biggest environmental dump in Nevada is the old Anaconda copper mine outside of Yarrington. There's been allegations of a cover-up, a slowdown. Just where does this stand?
Sure, good question. It is a big site. It's of a great concern to the state of Nevada, and I know to Governor Gwynn himself. There was a memorandum of agreement that was entered into between the state of Nevada Division of Environmental Protection, the Bureau of Land Management, and the Environmental Protection Agency to proceed with the cleanup of that site. As that work has progressed, it's become more and more apparent that the site is more complex than was anticipated, and it became readily evident that the three-party memorandum was not serving the needs to adequately characterize the site in a timely fashion. So just a week or two ago, we requested that EPA come in under a section of the Superfund program and undertake a lead action on that site.
But what about a cover-up of Mismanagement of, is there anything to that?
I don't believe there is. I think that the information information has been disseminated in a timely fashion. All of our records, of course, are open to the public, as they are for the BLM and the EPA. So while I think any cleanup doesn't proceed as fast as some people would like, I think that there was some good work done on this site, and I'm sure the good work will continue for the future.
What about a Superfund? Why don't you apply for Superfund funding from the federal government, get more money in there?
Well, as you know, Superfund doesn't have a lot of money in it right now, and sites have to compete across the nation. So there's a great concern that if we went the traditional Superfund route, that it wouldn't get the money that it needs. And quite frankly, we have a very capable and what has been a responsible party on this site in the form of Atlantic Richfield, or ARCO, and they've been
the owners, correct?
They are successors to the old Anaconda Company, and they've been very cooperative on the site so far, and we hope that cooperation will continue with EPA lead.
Okay, on another topic, we had Pat Moore on the program yesterday talking about the purchasing of water from White Pine and Lincoln counties to send down to Las Vegas. There are a lot of people in those counties who are concerned that this is a water grab. What's your opinion on this?
Well, you know, as our population in Nevada blossoms, we're now at 2.3 million, as was reported today. You know, the pressures on water are greater and greater. We've got drought in the upper Colorado River Basin, and so for many years, Las Vegas has been looking northward to those counties. The state engineer has a very delicate balancing act to follow in terms of providing water for those communities while retaining the environmental sensitivities in those counties and economic development opportunities for those counties. So the state engineer has to make those very difficult decisions for the future of our state.
Are you confident that the people of White Pine and Lincoln will be happy with the results at the end of it?
I can't say that, but I can tell you that the state engineer will take a good look at this on a scientific basis and make the best decision based upon that information.
Alan, one more question about the Anaconda copper mine. Are the people in Yerington or surrounding area in any danger with all the toxic material in that mine?
Well, there has been some testing that has been done that showed elevated constituents of things like uranium and arsenic. It's unclear at this time whether or not that's as a result of the mining activities or naturally occurring conditions. We have similar type water quality throughout the state of Nevada. So one of the things that will be done in the future is to characterize that waste, determine where it's coming from or if it's naturally occurring. In the meantime, the people who have those elevated concentrations within their wells are being provided the opportunity to have bottled water or other alternate water supplies.
Let's talk about Walker Lake. Sure. Walker Lake continues to go down and get saltier and saltier. What is being done through your department to help save Walker Lake?
Well, there's a negotiation process going on in lieu of litigation, and that's been moving forward for about 2 years. And there's a number of parties involved in an attempt to find additional water for Walker Lake to help bring the level up and to dilute out the salts. Hopefully, that will have some success, and that.
One of the biggest problems with Walker Lake is the fact that there are more than 100% water rights on that lake, correct? Or on the river, I should say.
Well, I think that there's not enough water to go around for all of the needs in the river system. So we've got to do a compromise, a give and take of the water, and hopefully some of that can be reserved for the lake to allow it to come up, to have a viable fishery, and to help the aquatic life and the recreational opportunities.
Who do you think is going to give up water at this point?
Well, I think that everybody has to give a little bit. I think that there's no one party that can resolve this issue, that everybody has to look at the water they're using, increased efficiencies, and everybody's got to give a little bit.
Alan, do you feel that water will overtake taxes as the #1 issue in the state legislature when it opens in February?
Well, I don't know if it'll overtake taxes, but it's certainly going to be a very large issue in the legislative session. There's already 15 or 16 BDRs in place that are going to bill draft requests that are going to deal with water-related issues. So I anticipate that it'll be a very, very large issue this session.
Alan Biaggi, thank you so much for coming in. We'll be welcoming you back here soon, I hope.
Great, thank you.
We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers with Ty Cobb after this.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by Sunbelt Communication.
hole in your roof or a whole new roof, Ken Dillon, owner of Van Dyne Roofing, can get it fixed with his eyes closed.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The Resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
It's America's largest historical district, and it's fun for the entire family. Virginia City is where the West comes alive every day, from train rides to gunslingers. Your gang can explore mines and interesting museums, visit historic saloons, and do some great shopping. Virginia City is the ultimate in family entertainment, and it's very affordable. Come up and stay overnight in our hotels, motels, and RV park. Virginia City, the Wild West at its best.
If you think Wells Fargo is only checking accounts, you're not seeing the whole picture. Online brokerage, mutual funds, mortgages, and home equity accounts. So get more than free checking and start reaching your goals today. Now you get the picture. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined by Cobb, who's an expert on foreign relations and served former President Reagan. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Sam.
There was a very disturbing editorial in the New York Times yesterday talking about the grim realities in Iraq, which of course we're seeing on a daily basis on our television screens. One of the questions that the New York Times posed in its editorial was to include the Sunni Muslims in this attempt to put together a government. Shouldn't we not plunge ahead to try and get the elections done next month, but hold off several months so we can actually have some meaningful dialogue with the Sunnis? Otherwise, isn't this thing just going to fall apart anyway?
No, I don't think so. I think the Sunnis have had ample opportunity to join in. You quoted the New York Times. I would reference Tom Friedman's editorial in the New York Times this morning. And I think we have to understand what is really at stake in Iraq. What Friedman points out is that what is going on there is really a war between some people in the heart of the Arab Muslim world who for the first time in their region are trying to organize an election to choose their own leaders and to write their own constitution. He goes on to say that the so-called insurgents that we're talking about are the real fascists, the real colonialists, the real imperialists of our age, a tiny minority who want to rule Iraq by force and rip off its wealth for themselves. So I think we have to understand that if the Sunni minority, who are largely behind the suicide bombings that have caused so much trouble, want to participate, they have an opportunity to do so in a free and fair election, but they don't want to.
But you know what, though? They're pulling people out of cars and shooting them, people who are election officers.
That's exactly right.
I mean, the stability is not to be found in Iraq. You have three different groups. You've got the Kurds, you've got the Shiites, and you've got the Sunnis. And if you don't go in and find some Sunnis who are moderate that can be part of this dialogue, are we just ripping the country into three pieces?
Well, that's a very difficult thing to do. But I think you have to understand that postponing the election is not going to necessarily allow you to bring the Sunnis into the electoral process. Those people that are dragging the election workers out of the car aren't saying, gee, I really like this idea of having democracy in this country and sharing the wealth, unlike what it was under Saddam Hussein when we, the Ba'athist minority, ruled the country and terrorized the rest of the population. The idea that they're going to stop pulling election workers out of the cars and killing them if we postpone the elections is wrong. So I don't think that that's a reason in itself to postpone the elections.
So, Ty, in short, are you saying if we postpone, it would be a victory for terror?
Of course it is. That's what they want. They want not only to postpone it, of course, not to have elections. What they want to do is a return to the dictatorship that existed before and to prevent this one opportunity to establish democracy in the Arab Muslim world from becoming a reality.
How long, Ty, is U.S. military going to have to be in Iraq?
Well, that's the second question. I think the mission that we're there for is a worthwhile one, but it's extremely difficult. and we're against a fanatical minority who are willing to do the suicide attacks and promise for an afterlife. And I think we just really have to confront the reality of the situation. Is however noble our aims there, are they achievable? And I think this is the debate that's going to be taking place over the next 6 months.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, but and again, referring to this New York Times editorial, they're saying that because we are getting very little support from anybody except the British, that we're going to need to have more American troops there. And if we're not going for a draft, then we're going to have a large financial cost to be able to recruit more people into the services. Do you agree?
That's exactly true. You know, one of the things that is dismaying is the Europeans. They've been hammering, said we need to have self-determination, the Palestinian state. We need to have elections. We probably need to do that in Iraq. So where are the Europeans at this time? I mean, you can debate whether or not it was wise to go in, but we're in there, and the potential for democracy in the Middle East is at stake. So I think it's time for the Europeans, particularly the European left, to step up.
Can you imagine any political leader in Europe seeing the scenes that are on their evening news every evening of what's happened to American troops? Politically, would they be able to put troops into this? I don't think so.
They certainly could. I think if Schroeder was leaning in that direction, I mean, they have several thousand in Afghanistan, so I think it's possible. What you really need is President Bush's trip that he's going to take to Europe right after the election is an opportunity to man some fences and see if we can get some support. Whether otherwise, you know, for the United States to be carrying the bulk of this and maintaining the troop levels and the rotation we have is going to be very difficult, as you point out. That's right.
And very expensive.
It's going to be very expensive, absolutely.
And we are out of time. Ty Cobb, we always appreciate you coming in. Thanks for being here. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
Is Nevada Newsmakers.
When you need a new employee, how can you be sure who you're really hiring? A background investigation by Employer Links will uncover criminal records, verify the applicant's education, check their credit history and Social Security verification. An investigation will research professional licenses and driver's licenses and let you know why they're unemployed. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
Siegfried and Roy presents Darren Romeo.
There's magic in his voice, and there's music in his magic.
Brilliant young talent like this is very rare.
The music of the night. I'm Darren Romeo.
Unbelievable. Wow. Fantastic.
Dinner and show package from $27.95. Call the Eldorado at 786-5700.
If you think Wells Fargo is only checking accounts, you're not seeing the whole picture. Online brokerage, mutual funds, mortgages, and home equity accounts. So get more than free checking and start reaching your goals today. Now you get the picture. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
If you own a business and want to maximize your company's potential, join the Retail Association of Nevada. Our membership benefits include the Nevada Retail Network Self-Insured Group, providing workers' compensation coverage that can lower your rates. That savings can go directly to your bottom line. We are an effective pro-business organization that lobbies on behalf of our business members. The Retail Association of Nevada, protecting Nevada businesses for 35 years.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, joining Ray Hagar and myself will be Marlene Lockard with Capital Strategies and Ray Bacon, who's the Executive Director of the Nevada Manufacturers Association. Welcome.
Marlene, let me start with you. Ty Cobb was just on. How do we impose democracy on a nation that's never had it before?
Well, I think it's a tremendous undertaking, and I think the whole premise that the Bush administration used is flawed, and we're somehow now in attempting to create a democracy, and that's not why we supposedly went over there. The American public was told there were weapons of mass destruction, and somehow they linked the 9/11 issue.
But Marlene, that's old news. We're in the middle of this now.
It may be old news, but he asked me, how do we create democracy?
Can we then?
I know, but look at the very fact that we're discussing that when we should be fighting against terrorists in Afghanistan and pursuing that. So I think, and like Ty said, we can debate all day about the wisdom of going in there, but I think trying to bite off a task like create democracy where none has ever existed.
But wait a second, that's where I want to stop you right there. Let's get down to some facts here, because I think this is really important. This is important for everybody in this country to understand. If you go back prior to the fall of the Berlin Wall, the world had roughly 400 million free market workers in the world. About half of those in the U.S. and Canada, and the rest of them were Japan and Western Europe. Since the fall of the Berlin Wall immediately allowed that number to effectively be permitted to double. Now, Estonia, Latvia, Hungary, Poland, and things like that have done magnificent transitions to a free market economy and effectively to democracy or at least to democratic principles. You know, Uzbekistan and some of those places could still be under communism. It wouldn't make much difference. But the number was effectively allowed to double. The changes that have simultaneously or subsequently happened in Brazil, in Chile, in India, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and in China to bring in at least quasi-free market economies has now taken the number of people that are working in effective free market economies up to 2 billion. If the Middle East does not transition to free market economies, to at least some sort of democratic or representative type of government, they're going to be left in the dust. If you take a look, most of the rest of those places that we're talking about never had democracy either.
Who are we to dictate?
We're trying to save those people from themselves.
Well,
maybe they don't want us
to. We're doing.
Well, but when you talk to somebody that's been on the ground over there, the vast majority, the 80-90% of the folks, truly want a representative government. They want their economies open. They want the opportunity to compete in the world markets.
I haven't seen a poll to that effect.
You're not going to out of this press.
Yes, but you know, well.
Oh, Ray, don't blame the press for us. That really burns me. You can't blame the press for the mess that we're in Iraq.
No,
that is total
but you know
crap.
what, though, Ray? But I will say something. You know, we in the media, and especially in broadcast media, if there's a small fire on the outside of a building, we shoot in real tight,
Absolutely.
and it's a giant flame. What we're not doing to
I don't think we're sensationalizing anything.
I didn't say we're sensationalizing.
But
what I'm saying is that if
Americans killed over there and many more maimed, and their lives
I'm not
changed
disagreeing,
forever.
but there are
that is a fact.
Why should we report on the happy news all the time when there's so much bad going on there?
I didn't say the happy news all the time, but there should be a balance. We have thousands of soldiers
Sam,
over there.
What is some happy news out of Iraq?
Well, that they have restored electrical systems, water systems, schools are back in business, hospitals.
Nobody can drive down the street to utilize it.
That's not true. In certain areas.
Americans certainly can.
In the Sunni areas, that's where the problem is.
Sunni areas, that is not true in the northern areas and things like that.
Well, in the battleground areas, it is very true. And there's a big battle going on across the nation.
Remember, it's not across the nation. It's in certain areas of the nation.
In different parts across the nation.
Right, but for the most part, it's in that central area, which is the Sunni Triangle, and these people.
But I think the mistake. What a mess! And how did we get there?
Well,
we can't get any help from any other nations.
This is just a huge, huge mess.
I agree with you about that.
Mesopotamia.
And we can't impose our economy. We can't impose our government on anyone. That is un-American.
But we also cannot let this country fall into a major civil war that would put Iran in an extremely strong position. Iraq has always been the counterbalance, and even though the Iranians would like to have a lot more influence over the Shiites, they don't have nearly as much because they have different religious backgrounds to a certain extent. The folks in Iraq are much more secular, and so the likelihood is you would not see a religious state being imposed on Iraq. But we are there. We have to deal with the realities.
Well, we're there, and we were in Vietnam too, and I see this is the new world Vietnam. Vietnam
this is drastically different than Vietnam.
Our soldiers are over there for an extended period of time, and they're dying.
But you know
that's where it's the same.
Insignificant quantities of deaths compared to what took place in any other war that we've ever been in.
Tell that to a mom who lost her kid
Absolutely.
and got a stamped letter from Donald Rumsfeld.
Did you go to Vietnam? I did.
I can't. I had 3
So
brothers
I don't have a.
And did they come back
on
negative on the whole situation?
Yes, they did.
Well, that's too bad, because I came back having learned a tremendous amount out of Vietnam. I thought it was, it wasn't a fun experience.
That was a political war,
Absolutely
and that's
not.
exactly what we're doing again.
No.
Exactly what we're doing.
There's a lot of parallels, Ray.
There are a lot of parallels and things like that, but there's huge differences. Absolutely huge differences.
Right, one's in the jungle, one's in the sand.
No. There was absolutely nothing that we were going to do in Vietnam which was going to make any difference in the economic situation.
We were going to establish democracy there, too.
But look at this.
Not really.
All of a sudden,
Yes, we did.
No, not really.
We're talking
Yeah,
about...
because it was a crooked democracy,
No.
but we tried to establish
There was
democracy
never
in Vietnam.
any discussion of having elections in Vietnam. Never. Think about it. When did we ever have discussions about having elections in Vietnam?
Well, how did President Tu get elected?
He didn't get elected. He was appointed, effectively.
Well, there you go. By whom?
Well, by us and
there
and
you
the
go.
elite, but quite frankly,
establishing our government in Vietnam, just like we're doing in Iraq.
This election is not going to go our way, but
it's not.
I agree with Ty. The election needs to be held.
And Vietnam didn't go our way, too.
I think the election needs to be held also. And then I think we should declare victory and get out.
And it's not going to happen. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
It's America's largest historical district, and it's fun for the entire family. Virginia City is where the West comes alive every day, from train rides to gunslingers. Your gang can explore mines and interesting museums, visit historic saloons, and do some great shopping. Virginia City is the ultimate in family entertainment, and it's very affordable. Come up and stay overnight in our hotels, motels, and RV park. Virginia City, the Wild West at its best.
For a hole in your roof or a whole new roof, Ken Dillon, owner of Van Dyne Roofing, can get it fixed with his eyes closed.
I tell you, John, this industry has really changed.
Tell me about it.
You seem to do pretty well last year. What's your secret?
No secrets. Although I'll tell you something. The smartest thing I did was sign up with Pro Group Management.
Really? Yeah, they do workers' comp, right?
Yeah, their services are great. And get this, they saved me 30%. I've heard they saved others 50%.
That works for me.
Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
What do we have coming up next week, Ray?
Well, Sam, next week we have Senator Harry Reid, the minority leader. We have John L. Smith from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And on Monday, we have a special show with some of the top high school students in our state.
We'll see you next week.